Brock Purdy and rarefied air statistically having a monster start to the 2024 season. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there, and welcome to all the new listeners this season to Locked On 49ers. Thanks for making us your first listen. And Croc and I here daily for you, breaking down the San Francisco 49ers. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. All right, Croc. Let's talk a little bit more Brock Purdy. We talked a little bit about him, and his start to the season is actually pretty ridiculous right now with what he's doing statistically, and it's unbelievable. We can talk a little bit more about Mason, and I do have another stat on Jauan Jennings as well. Is he, by the way, the wide receiver 1 for the 49ers? He has been through the first month of the season. Through September, he has been. The 49ers have 7th round quarterback, 7th round wide receiver, undrafted running back, rolling through the league statistically right now, like at the top of the league at their positions. And so it's pretty phenomenal what's going on. Let's start with Purdy though, Croc, because what he's doing isn't only pretty good right now, pretty good for the 49ers, but the pace he's on through 4 weeks, he's on pace to throw for almost 5,000 yards and currently leads the NFL in passing yards with 1,100. Yards per pass attempt, 9.3. Thanks to John Chapman, by the way, who relayed these statistics. He's got the most deep completions in the league, 20 plus yards, 9 of those. The most deep passing yards, 292 yards. The most deep passes dropped, by the way, so it could be bigger and better what he's doing right now, and the most first downs. And then you see him running around and using his legs as well, and really putting the Patriots pass rushers in the spin cycle on Sunday. I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch. He's just doing phenomenal things right now. And I know you want to say something about it. I got another stat that's even crazier for what he's doing historically right now amongst all-time quarterbacks.
Oh, well, the only thing I want to say is kind of like how we got here with him. And I think now, if it wasn't clear before, it's solidified that this guy is just really good. And there are some people wondering, why was there ever even a question? Because all we've seen from him has been excellent for the most part, right? I mean, obviously a game here and there, but over the bigger picture, what's consistent is Brock Purdy playing pretty damn good football. And there were obviously comparisons to Jimmy Garoppolo. And a lot of people wonder, how could you compare him to Jimmy Garoppolo? If you compare the two, you don't know football. If there's a debate between is Brock good or not, then you don't know football. And I try to tell people the conversation on whether Brock Purdy is legit or not all stems from Jimmy Garoppolo. And some of the things that he did with the 49ers coming in, being with the 49ers for like 2-3 weeks, leading them to 5-0 during that stretch, being number 1 in the league in a lot of statistical categories during that 5-game stretch of 2017. Not touchdowns and interceptions, wasn't all that great. But, watching Jimmy Garoppolo perform and then seeing the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo go to a Super Bowl and a conference championship game, win a lot of games. You and I were calling him Jimmy W. And then he goes to another team and he bombs it. And he sucks. And there were a lot of people that were saying, oh, Jimmy's not that good. It's kind of the situation. He has Kyle Shanahan. He has these things. A lot of people defending the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo like, no, Jimmy is good. He's a good quarterback. Well, because of that and how it ended up when he left, a lot of people looked at Brock like, this guy is the same, And I think it took a while for people to come to realize, and I think they are now more than any other time, realize the dude's pretty damn good. And I think the biggest thing for me, obviously, just the consistency. He's been good. But just how good is he once you see some of the guys taken away from him and he's still performing at an extremely high level? How much does he need CMC? How much does he need Debo, Kittle, all these other guys? it's very clear to me he's always looked like himself, and himself has led him to be off to a historically great start to his career, one of the best that we've ever seen.
You know what's interesting about this season is it's not like because Christian McCaffrey's out, they're running the ball less either. Jordan Mason's getting the rock a ton. And I think I might have said at the beginning that he's leading the league in rushing. He was only leading the league in rushing for about a couple hours until Derrick Henry went for 200 yards on Sunday Night Football. Derrick Henry is now number one in the NFL and passed up Jordan Mason. Derrick Henry has 480 rushing yards over the course of 4 weeks, and Jordan Mason at 447 right now. So number two in the NFL is Jordan Mason yardage-wise rushing. And then you got Jauan Jennings, number three in the NFL in receiving yards. But this is the thing. It's not like they're like, okay, we're going to lean into passing more. It's just that Brock Purdy's getting more out of it. Like, and this is with Deebo Samuel banged up, George Kittle banged up. His number one receiver is the number three receiver coming into the year, Jauan Jennings. Brandon Aiyuk still not quite in midseason form. I want to talk with you about what you think about Brandon Aiyuk and his start to the season right now. And I've got a statistic on that as well. Brock Purdy's just playing really well, and they're running the ball too. And so it's not like a volume thing. It's just that he's playing that well right now. Brock Purdy is making himself a lot of money, and he's not leaning on the star players. He's not leaning on anything. You can say it's all Kyle Shanahan if you want, but Brock Purdy's been the best quarterback since the Matt Ryan, Super Bowl run with Julio Jones version of Kyle Shanahan's office. Brock Purdy's been the best quarterback since then, and statistically right now on pace to be better than that Matt Ryan at quarterback for Kyle Shanahan.
You talked about, some of the weapons and what they're doing or not doing, and maybe, just the volume of passing. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have the stats up in front of me right now, but Brock Purdy only completed 15 passes last game. 15, 16 passes?
I don't have it in front of me as well.
That's not a lot of completions, but to the tune of 280
efficiency.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing, this game was terrific. He played well. I loved watching him make plays with his legs, run for first downs. It was not his most efficient game throwing the ball. I think like slightly above 50% passing, but the completions that he did have, which he didn't have a lot, he made them count. Whether it was the deep ball to Brandon Aiyuk to start the game over the middle, that was a chunk play of like 36 yards. The deep ball vertically down the field to Deebo Samuel. We saw the deep ball to Jauan Jennings. Heck, he even had a huge play that would have given him another 40 plus yards taken away from him on the pass to Jordan Mason. So, I mean, he even has some numbers that were kind of taken away from him a little bit within that draft. Could have easily, within that game, could have easily been over 300 yards, but not a ton of completions. Efficiency in this game, not as great, but I do like him showing, heck, even when I'm not as efficient, I can still be super productive in this offense, and he showed that yesterday. He keeps checking off every box.
No doubt. It was 15 completions that he had in this game. 27 attempts, 15 completions, but for 288 yards, 10.7 yards per attempt there for Brock Purdy. So that's it was big play Brock is what it was against the New England Patriots.
Before we started recording yesterday, my brother was yelling in the background, and he's like, "Y'all like Brock Purdy? He ain't it." And you were like, "Yeah, I bet you Pittsburgh Steelers were like Brock Purdy right now." But I think my question now is, and again, for any doubters, there's people that they're calling people haters or people who are hating on Brock. I don't even think they're hating. I think people were doubters, right? And I think a lot of us had to work through that. I had to work through that. Like, okay, how good is he? Because of the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff. And how do you doubt him anymore? He's shown you each and every way that I am always going to be this guy. And I think as long as he has Kyle Shanahan and they're in this office and it works and there's been a lot of plug and play, it's been terrific. Now, I guess the last thing is just you're going to win the Super Bowl. and there's some Mahomes numbers that's out there of him, at least regular season games. His record is like the same as Mahomes since the beginning of last year, and that's with the 49ers losing 2 games this season as opposed to the Chiefs losing none. There's been one difference, and that one difference is the only thing that has the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl last year. So, we'll kind of get more into that when we get into the Mahomes stuff. But overall, how can you not be excited about what the 49ers are getting out of Mr. Irrelevant?
And by the way, if you want to call someone a dink and dunk quarterback, Patrick Mahomes is your dink and dunk quarterback right now. It's Brock Purdy who leads the league in yards per attempt. He's been phenomenal. And he's creating plays. Like, he's doing it. And it's not paint by numbers. He's creating, he's moving around, making big plays. The Juszczyk touchdown, they got called back. The Kittle touchdown. He's making throws. He's making plays. He's making plays with his legs, keeping drives alive. There's maybe a couple that you would have said, he wasn't perfect last week. There's a couple that we'd like to see him throw. Missed Aiyuk on a busted play. Didn't pull the trigger on that one. But then he also made the throws to win the game that weren't caught either. And so he's played phenomenal. I don't know how you can watch Brock Purdy right now and not think he's just a really good quarterback. Even if you don't believe that he's going to be in a tier with, Mahomes and Josh Allen, I'm not going to fight you over that. I'm not going to make you think that he's the top tier quarterback in the NFL. But if you don't think Brock Purdy is awesome, then I just don't know what you're watching.
Did you see? I watched the all 22 version of his interception that he threw. It really was. See, all interceptions aren't created equal. There's like bad interceptions. Like, why did you throw that? Like, that was a terrible decision. When I watched the all 22 version and I watched Peppers was the backside safety, right? So you had Brandon Aiyuk run straight across the field. Had a couple steps on whatever DB that was. To the other side, you had this backside safety, which I believe was Jabril Peppers, and he was down. They were bracketing George Kittle. So if George Kittle would have ran out, then Peppers would have got him. If he goes in, then that other defender has him. So the other defender, George Kittle went in. The other defender stayed with him, and that made it to where Peppers was free. So all he did from that point was, I'm free. I can read the quarterback's eyes. He looks, he's looking over here, and he's able to rob it from the backside, which Purdy just never saw. Which we said that yesterday. Like, I was like, I don't think Purdy or Aiyuk saw that backside safety. They didn't, but it was a terrific play and play design scheme by the New England Patriots and Jabril Peppers to come down with that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like, not all sacks, not all interceptions are created equal. Some are quarterback created, some are other things created. Now it's just, one of those plays where there's not a safety there, and he was right in that, but because of the design and the way the play happened, he ended up drifting back there, and there was somebody there to make the play. So good on. Sometimes you got to congratulate the other guys for making a good play, and that's what that was. More on 49ers statistically after Sunday's win over the New England Patriots. A little nugget that kind of blew past me this weekend about Christian McCaffrey. Not just one Achilles, but both Achilles are ailing right now for Christian McCaffrey. But then some messaging that doesn't really jive between John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, which is now maybe multiple times in 2 weeks that they haven't been on the same page. This time about Christian McCaffrey, what to expect from him and Jauan Jennings, and a lot more coming up on this edition of Locked On 49ers. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return right now on FanDuel and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. I'll tell you how to get them in just a minute. And when you're watching football next Sunday, you're watching the 49ers game, maybe you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you want to check out the latest stats. And you think, I think this could happen or this could happen, and I think I've got an edge right now. You can view live play-by-play, statistics, and so much more on the same page at FanDuel.com that you can place your bets. So all you got to do is go to FanDuel.com and get started, and you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. And you just have to place your first $5 bet. You don't have to win on that bet. That 200 extra bonus bets is guaranteed. Just place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com and get $200 to play with. Visit FanDuel.com or download the app to get America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com. Let's continue the offensive statistics because these are so fun. Brock Purdy leading the league in passing. Jordan Mason, #2 in the NFL in rushing with 447 yards. #3 receiver in the NFL is Jauan Jennings with 364 receiving yards. We're seeing him on the field more. And I mentioned this yesterday, and I want to bring it back up again because I love the wrinkle, the wide back wrinkle right now for the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey out, I like so much, not because of handing Debo the ball necessarily, but because they can still get their best personnel on the field. And instead of trotting a backup running back on the field, if you want to give Jordan Mason some rest, you bring in Jauan Jennings instead. And I think every 49ers fan would rather see Jauan Jennings trot on the field than Isaac Guerrero right now. So that's the wrinkle you get when you rest Jordan Mason and you bring Debo Samuel in the game as the running back, and then Jauan Jennings is out there as a starting wide receiver, and he's been awesome on the outside, where he's not just been a big slot this year when he's filled in for Debo, and then now playing with Debo at the same time, and Brandon Aiyuk. And Jauan Jennings has been ridiculous. Third in the league in receiving yards with 364, and his yards per route run is even better. You want to talk efficiency? Jauan Jennings is number one in the NFL. Wide receivers, yards per route run this season, 3.71 yards per route run is number one in the NFL, ahead of Tutu Atwell, who's next, kind of surprisingly, but I guess not surprisingly when you see what happened with the 49ers. Rashee Rice, who's out for the year now, number 3 on the list. Justin Jefferson hit the Niners for a 97-yarder, number 4 on the list. And so that's the company that these guys are keeping right now.
You know, right now, Jauan Jennings has more yards than he even had all of last season. And I'm pretty sure after the next game, he's going to have the most yards that he's ever had in a single season, because it's just slightly over 400 yards. So, I mean, he's having a terrific year, especially as a quote-unquote wide receiver 3. And I would say this. His production says, oh, I'm wide receiver 1. But I think if you looked at how defenses defend the other guys on the 49ers, you could see that he is the wide receiver 3, at least the way that they respect the pecking order of the 49ers. But that doesn't stop him from just making the plays that he like. It's not like he's wide open on a lot of these plays. He is making the plays, showing that, hey, even though I am, I'm prioritized by the defense as the wide receiver 3, I'm going to make plays that a wide receiver 1 should make. And he's doing that consistently.
Like the deep post. He's a dime by Brock Purdy, and Jauan Jennings isn't known for his speed. He's not this downfield guy, but he's got size. He's got ball skills. He went up and get a ball as a perfect throw, and he came down with it. He's making tough catches. He's always been pretty good and tough runner after the catch as well. And to credit Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, their offense is designed to find who's open. So if you're going to pay extra attention to the run game, if you're going to pay extra attention to George Kittle, like you just mentioned, the bracket coverage, you're going to pay extra attention to Brandon Aiyuk, and teams are, then it's just more likely that someone like Jauan Jennings is going to be open, and Brock Purdy has continued to find him over and over again. And that's why he's number 3 in the league right now in receiving yards and number 1 in yards per route run.
And you say find him over and over again. We've seen him do it 2 different ways. Against the Rams, he had 11 catches on 12 targets for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. This last game, even though he had 88 catches, he did that on 3 catches. 88 yards. He did it on 3 catches. Yeah. So he's showing that it doesn't have to be a ton of catches, to still be productive in this offense, man. I can do it with chunk plays and every which way that Kyle Shanahan needs me to do it to try to pull off this victory.
And by the way, still lining him up in his quasi tight end role too, that I've talked about over the years. And, the tight split, and then him and George Kittle on the same side. It's like running 2 tights over there. Huge hole for Jordan Mason to run in, making big plays. So, the 49ers offense right now is doing its thing. And when the defense is able to feast like they did last week, teams are in trouble. So I want to see if the defense can continue to feast against better offenses and better offensive lines like they did against the Patriots last week. By the way, I totally forgot to mention the stat of Brock Purdy since the merger. This is like what year was the merger? Super Bowl 1, right? 60 years ago almost. Highest passer rating over the first 25 career starts since the merger. Brock Purdy, number 1, 112.6 passer rating right now for the first 25 starts of his young career. Better than Patrick Mahomes, just slightly, 112.5. So he's got 0.1 on Patrick Mahomes' first 25 starts. Patrick Mahomes' first 25 starts were ridiculous. They were spectacular. And it started in week 17 of his rookie year and into his second year. So we're not even talking about rookie Patrick Mahomes that much involved in that. He was an MVP in the first 25 starts of his career. And then number 3 on the list is 106.2 passer rating in his first 25 career starts, Kurt Warner. Brock Purdy ahead of both Patrick Mahomes and Kurt Warner, who had the best starts in NFL history at cornerback. Brock Purdy better.
And I think there's something to say about all three of those quarterbacks. Look at their situations. Like the Kansas City Chiefs were a playoff team. They were going to the playoffs with Alex Smith. The Rams, they were primed to be better. They thought they were going all in with Trent Green before he went down with the injury. But, oh, man, Kurt Warner walks in and is like, oh, okay, I'm starting, but this is Ricky Pro and Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, like, oh, Marshall Faulk. Oh, okay. And what happens? He has one of his best, at that point, the best start ever, right? In the sense of the first 25 starts in the passer rating. And then Mahomes comes around. Again, that was a playoff team. He has Tyreek Hill. He has Travis Kelce. He's coming into a great situation. What he's do? Become one of the greatest young quarterbacks that we've ever seen. Through 50 touchdowns, hit that first year starting to win the NFL MVP. And then now you look at Brock Purdy, same thing. Great situation, comes in. I got Christian McCaffrey. I got Debo. I got Aiyuk. I got George Kittle. I got Jauan Jennings. And I think a lot of that helped. Like it helps him and helped having offensive minded. The Rams had Mike Martz at that time. And 49ers, you got Kyle Shanahan, who's going to make sure that he puts his quarterback in a good position, good situation. And then shout out to the quarterbacks because there have been a lot of quarterbacks, including on the 49ers team, Trey Lance, who did not capitalize on coming into a great situation. So each one of those quarterbacks, not only, yes, I have a great situation, but you got to be able to take advantage of it. And those guys did a terrific job, each and every one of them. Maybe it's their level of preparation. Maybe it's just some tenacity. Maybe it's just having that it factor. But all three of those guys, including Brock Purdy, who is at the top of all three of them, they not only took advantage of it, when you look at them, it's like these are pros. Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, if he retired today, Hall of Fame quarterback. Brock Purdy, he's going to need a little bit of hardware, but if he continues on this trajectory, he's heading towards that.
And it's the thing I would say to your brother who loves to be a Brock Purdy hater. And I think
he's a Brock Purdy hater. I said some other people are doubters. He's a hater.
He leans beyond doubter into hater land. How do you doubt at this point? How can you not believe? Watching Jayden Daniels the first few weeks of the season, it's like rookie. Okay, they're making things easy for him, balls out quick, short stuff, but then he's making some big plays on top of it too. And you're like, well, he's completing 80% of his passes. Like, how can you not believe Sam Darnold right now? That was what I was talking about on Peacock and Williamson today. He's like, you kind of have to believe. They're forcing you to believe in what you're seeing right now because they're doing it. And Brock Purdy's been doing it for longer than both Sam Darnold and Jayden Daniels. So if people are crowning Jayden Daniels right now, they damn well better be crowning Brock Purdy because he's done it for the first 25 games of his career better than anybody in NFL history. And by the way, if you don't like EPA, you think it's skewed towards Shanahan-style offenses, Shanahan's an EPA wizard. If you don't like quarterback rating, what about the ESPN QBR stat? Well, Brock Purdy's still top 5 in the NFL. In fact, tied with Jayden Daniels right now. 73.4 QBR. Josh Allen's number 1 in the league right now, 82 QBR. So any way you slice it, Brock Purdy's been phenomenal. And fun to watch with the way he scrambles around, just makes plays too. And, the underdog that shouldn't really even be considered the underdog anymore because we've seen it. We've seen it.
I think one of the more exciting things is our offseasons are kind of boring on the podcast now because you just have your quarterback and there's no controversy. There's no, hey, okay.
No, are you kidding?
Kaepernick
have you not seen how these contract negotiations go?
Yeah. So we will have that next offseason. Let's go.
I mean, we're going to be on 59 million, 60 million, 65, 70 million. Oh, they're lowballing 48.5 million. I can't wait for next offseason's contract watch. If it's going to be that much for a $30 million contract, imagine how the 49ers play a $60 million contract and superstar quarterback, all-timer Brock Purdy. One more Purdy stat as it pertains to Brandon Aiyuk. Speaking of Aiyuk and Shanahan Lynch, not on the same page with some messaging recently. Christian McCaffrey, the latest. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Game Time. I love buying tickets for whether it's an NFL game, you're buying tickets for a Niners game, but I've got a couple of tickets coming up for some seats for concerts coming up. And there's another show that I'm kind of on the fence. My friends are going. It's like, am I going to go to the show? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for those last minute deals on Game Time before I buy my tickets. I already got my other tickets in advance. I wasn't missing one of my favorite bands of all time that's coming around. And Game Time has a new feature. If you are buying tickets, especially to big events like an NFL game where there's 50, 60,000 seats in a stadium, Game Time Picks. It's a new feature on Game Time that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And oh yeah, you can get up to 60% savings on some of those last minute tickets on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase for sports, music, comedy, theater events, whatever it is near you. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. We've been asked about this a lot, and there were some comments on YouTube I saw today, Croc. There was like, Brandon Aiyuk, we don't really need him after all, and we should trade him, or we should have traded him. And, it's like, well, you can't trade him now. You just signed him to a new contract. So if they're going to trade Aiyuk, it's going to be in a few years. Aiyuk's going to be here for a while. But what do you make of Aiyuk's slow start? And we talked about all these Brock Purdy statistics, but when you look at Brock Purdy targeting just Brandon Aiyuk, he only has a passer rating of 56.6. His passer rating basically is cut in half when he's targeting Brandon Aiyuk versus a guy who's making, cents on the dollar in Jauan Jennings so far this year at the wide receiver position. So what do you make of the slow start for Brandon Aiyuk? Something definitely feels like it's off. Is it just timing? Because Brock Purdy is such a timing quarterback. Kyle Shanahan's offense is a timing-based offense. And this is a guy that missed camp. He missed all of the offseason. Is it just timing that's missing with Brandon Aiyuk right now, or you see something else?
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's just how the plays work out. Now, obviously, you throw an interception when targeting him. That's definitely going to bring down your passing rating when targeting a specific player. And we saw that happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't put that on. We talked about earlier. I didn't put that on Brandon Aiyuk. I didn't put it on Brock Purdy either. When I watched the 49ers and they're using, because I actually tweeted something out, and you and I, people got upset because of how much I was saying usage, the Brandon Aiyuk usage in the offseason. We were talking about this, why I didn't think the 49ers wanted to pay him. Then I was surprised when they paid him. And the reasoning behind that was because they don't use him like the other guys in the league get used. We've talked about that a ton on here. So to see him go an entire half where he is targeted one time, and that one target was a 36-yard catch, guess who's not surprised? I'm not surprised, because the 49ers, and I'm watching them, I'm just like, they just have him. They have him away from the bunch. They have him away from the trip side. He's an X receiver. He's just by himself, and it's like, all right, just win your route. And it wasn't until the second half where he finally, because I tweeted this out, like, if you're going to be upset about Brandon Aiyuk's production because of his money, don't blame him. Blame the 49ers for paying him, because they paid him, and then they still just go out there and you're just X receiver. And if you get the ball, you get the ball. You're not even really a part of the progress unless you are. But finally, in the second half, I watched them motion him to a bunch and then run him across the field. And I said, that was specifically for Brandon Aiyuk. I saw him do that one time. Everything else is more based on, if he gets the ball, he gets it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And that's not a bad thing, because on one of those, it was Deebo Samuel running all the way down the field by himself. But the play that happened was, Deebo streaking through the middle of the field, and all Brock has to do is read the safety. If the safety drifts back, I'm going to throw this dig route to Brandon Aiyuk. If the safety comes up, which he did, where he comes up on Brandon Aiyuk, now I'm going to throw the go ball to Deebo Samuel. So it's just however the defense plays it, they dictate where the ball goes. And you're going to see from time to time a lack of protection from Aiyuk. There may be a game, maybe next game, Brandon Aiyuk has 9 catches and 120 yards. That will not mean anything for week 6. It won't mean anything. It would just mean he had a good game. That's awesome. People are going to say, oh, he's back.
He's back.
And then next game, he might have 2 catches. But it's just how they do it.
And
it works. The 49ers still have a really good offense. I think there's times where I feel like, hey, you could do more. I just am part of the, I'm just one of the people that say, well, if you don't plan on using him the way these other guys get used, why pay him as much as you
And
do?
it's probably why they listened to offers. And in the end, they didn't get the offer they wanted. But I thought signing him would be an indicator, and maybe that's still down the road. And the way the offense is built right now, it's maybe that's another season thing where they're going to really develop it, and he's going to become a guy that they move around more and feature him in some ways. And it would probably have to be post Deebo Samuel era, I would guess. And maybe he even moves into more of a Z role. And I don't know, because he could do that. Absolutely. And so we'll see what that ends up looking like. But
The issue with that one play that I said that I knew that they specifically drew up for him.
yeah,
I'm watching it and I see, and me and my brother watching this, a third down play. It's the one I thought it was PI, but whatever. But we know it's a third down play. I see him. I said they're gonna motion Brandon Aiyuk down. He's gonna run across here, shallow cross. And they did exactly that. So if Eric Crocker just randomly is watching, I'm not doing no film study on the 49ers. And I see that because I see him lined up off the ball. Like, why is Aiyuk off the ball? He's typically the X receiver. He's typically on the ball. And then I see him motion down. I'm like, oh, I already see what they're doing. So if I know it, there's a chance that the defense kind of knows. So is there a way to use him and just be a little bit more creative? Because he's not a straight go ball guy. And that's not to say that he can't do it. We've seen him catch go balls, but that's not really his game. He is a route runner. He is a separator doing that. And you only help him create more separation when you do things like force a defender to play off coverage. Motion to a tight split, make guys have to communicate, and then have him get these free releases, and then let him get wiggly from there. Like, I would use him totally different than the 49ers use him. And if you watch the Giants and Malik Neighbors, and maybe Malik Neighbors is just better than Brandon Aiyuk. He's clearly a better prospect coming out of college than Aiyuk is. But just look at all the creative ways they look to get the ball in his hands. Now, I'm not saying that Brandon Aiyuk has to get 18 targets like I watched Malik Neighbors get, but just look for ways to feature a guy. And the 49ers are like, no, we don't need to. And in their defense, they don't. But if they don't, then people can't complain about, oh, he has all this money and you're not seeing, the 49ers benefit from it like drastically.
I missed this over the weekend, and we're going to finish with this, Croc. Christian McCaffrey, who so none of this really jives as far as Christian McCaffrey's injury goes. And obviously he's been dealing with this for a while now. So he gets a photo snapped of him on a flight to Munich. And it turns out, and they basically have to admit this, and I don't know if they were planning on admitting it or not, but he goes to get this PRP treatment in Germany. And the internet doctors basically broke it down. It was like, okay, if you get this treatment, then that's probably going to put you out about 6 weeks or something like that. And maybe even up to 2 months, but some point maybe after the bye week in week 9 makes sense for Christian McCaffrey if he got the platelet rich plasma injection and he went to Germany to get this treatment. And who knows, maybe they looked at him and he didn't get the treatment. So I don't know if it's been confirmed that he actually got the treatment. It's been confirmed that he went to Germany. Did he go to Germany to get something that he's going to get treatment on here? I don't know if that's legal, so I think he has to get the treatment there, and that's why you have to go there, because you can get the the better PRP, the more enriched plasma. And then Kyle Shanahan, like the next day, is like, oh, we're going to ramp up Christian McCaffrey next week, meaning this week. I'm like, well, that doesn't jive. And then John Lynch on Friday, and I missed this. It was relayed from Eric Branch, covers the 49ers for the Chronicle, that John Lynch dropped this little nugget that Christian McCaffrey was dealing with Achilles tendonitis in both sides. It was flared up bilateral Achilles tendonitis. We needed to quiet it down. And so he's got tendonitis on both sides right now, not just the left, but the right, or not just the right, but the left. I'm not sure which one we thought it was originally, but that doesn't sound good. And that doesn't add up to someone who's going to start ramping up this week either. So I don't get it. Is the 49ers medical staff off with McCaffrey and his people? Did he go do this on his own in Germany? And then Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch weren't on the same page with the cowing stuff last week. Just feels kind of weird.
The one thing I will say in defense of Kyle Shanahan, a head coach, all he reports or talks about is what he's being told. So if he says to Joe Brown, whoever Joe Brown is, but random person,
Judge.
if he says to Joe Brown, hey, what's up with Christian McCaffrey? They'll be like, oh, he's about ready for ramp up. So then the media, and they ask him, hey, what's going on with Christian McCaffrey? Oh, yeah, about to start ramping him up, get ready to go. That's just what somebody told him.
Or if he's just going by the IR thing. Oh, he had to be out for 4 weeks, so this is week 5. So apparently this is going to ramp up. And he doesn't even know about the rest of the stuff, maybe. That's possible. He's kind of just ignorant because he's dealing with everything else on the team.
Right. I don't think that he's sitting with the team doctor and is like, all right, so tell me about Christian McCaffrey. Oh, well, Christian McCaffrey has this, and this, and we're going to do this and this. Okay, so, when you say this, then how does this affect this? Okay, then this and this and this. Okay, well, how long will he be out? Like, that's not a conversation. I don't think that's happening. Like, head coaches, they have so much that they're worrying about. A lot of the stuff that they get is in passing. Even on one of their star players, they'll be questioned, hey, what's going on with them? But it's kind of like more brief stuff. He has a lot of, he, on top of being a head coach, he's not even one of the CEO head coaches. He's the play caller. So there are some people that say Sirianni from the Eagles. He ain't calling no damn plays. He's not a part of the game plan in that way. So he can be focused more on, hey, when is Christian McCaffrey coming back?
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan is like dialed in, watching a ton of film on the Arizona Cardinals, figuring out different ways to attack them, knowing I'm probably not going to have Christian McCaffrey, so let me focus on what I'm going to do with Jordan Mason and Deebo Samuel in the backfield.
There you have it. Let us know what you think at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. We'll learn more about Christian McCaffrey, I'm sure, this week when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and hit the podium or hit the radio waves next. And, of course, we'll have it all covered for you right here daily at Locked On 49ers. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Talk to you next time. Locked On 49ers.
Subscribe to this video.